with you, and thanks so much for giving us the opportunity to enjoy the day. I was really interested about your background. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. How'd you get into racing?
Yeah, it's kind of a similar story to other people, but different at the same time, I guess. I actually was born in Illinois in a small town called Paris. Never lived there. That was just the closest real hospital to where I was originally from, which is Marshall, Illinois. And it's about 15, 20 miles west of Terre Haute, so just across the border. Grew up there. My grandpa was in the plastics business, so produced plastics and then got into recycling. And he was also a farmer. He had cattle.
Okay.
So that was really my first driving experience, was kind of hanging out on his farm.
Driving a tractor to driving a race car.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Sitting on his lap when he'd be out baling hay. That was my first driving experiences. I would drive the tractor, pulling the trailer as they were throwing the hay bales up on the trailer. But he got me my first four-wheeler when I was probably 4 years old. So I was driving things at an early age. And then my parents had gotten divorced when I was 2, and my mom started dating my now dad, Tony George, and we moved over here when I was 8. And at that point, he asked myself and my stepbrother if we wanted to race quarter midgets, and I didn't really know what a quarter midget was, but I'd already been driving things and enjoyed it. So I jumped at the opportunity. So I started in quarter midgets when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
Actually won my first 8 races in a row, which
Wow.
is probably what really set in the racing bug for me, and there really was no turning back from there. We moved to Indianapolis right at that time, and this has been home ever since.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you were telling me today over at the track that when you do qualifying, you're basically flat out all the time, going 240 miles an hour, 230 miles an hour. So I assume you can't just jump in a car and drive that fast. It takes a while to build that up. So what was the process for you to get to that point where you could drive that way?
Yeah, people don't just jump into an Indy car and say, I'm going to go race at the Indy 500. In reality, it's a lot like other sports. Quarter midgets or go-karts, either one you start in, there's classes in that, and the novice classes and junior classes, you can relate it to Little League soccer or T-ball. It starts out very basic, very slow, and then as you get older and progress, you move up in classes, the karts get a little faster, the races get a little longer, so you kind of step your way through. Along the way, there's bigger jumps,
Sure.
when you move out of a quarter midget or a kart into a bigger car, there's some big jumps, but for me, I raced quarter midgets, then got into USAC midgets, sprint cars, Silver Crown, and at that time, 2002, Indy Lights had started, which is IndyCar's development series. So,
Sure.
Those cars, when I was running sprint cars, that's 100 to 120 miles an hour top speed. Then jump to Indy Lights that are 160 to 180, depending on the track. And then it's another big jump when you go from Indy Lights to IndyCar. But you pace your way through, and if you're good enough to transition out of one to the other, by the time you get experience there, you're generally ready for the next step.
Yeah.
So after being out at the track, we're here in our race shop now, but after getting a lap at the Speedway in the pace car, what were your thoughts and impressions? I don't know if you'd ever been out there before.
Well, I paid to ride in a bus around the track one time.
That's a little
from the
different.
museum. So today was a little bit different, going 120 miles an hour in that Impala. I drove an Impala down from Marion today, but I didn't do 120.
It's a good car.
It's a good car, but that was really an amazing feeling to have the speed that you just don't have that sensation anywhere else. I'm a pilot, I like to fly planes, but you don't feel the speed when you're up in the air. So it was really impressive to hear you talk about the way you think your way around the track, places where you mark out where you're going to turn in, and you even told me that one spot where there's a bump in the on the surface. So it's just impressive to see the kind of skill it takes and the intelligence to think your way around the way you did.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Obviously, as a race car driver, our job is to figure out how to make the car go faster, how to make the car work the way we want it to for a long duration on tires. But at the same time, once you get other cars out there and the weather conditions, there's a lot of variables. So, it's kind of, in a lot of ways, the race itself becomes a giant chess match. You're planning ahead, strategizing your next moves, all while dealing with other factors. So it's a lot more than guys just driving fast.
So it's not just put your foot down and turn left, huh?
Sometimes it is. You know, when you're out qualifying and you're in more of a controlled environment and just doing a few number of laps, it's more kind of you're going to go flat out and see what happens. You know, but when it comes to the race, and the Indy 500 is obviously a 500-mile race, you know, you're planning your moves and kind of setting up your position and playing out your strategy up to the end of the race to put yourself in a position for that last 20-30 lap window to be able to go battle for a win. Yeah.
Well, it's really great for IWU to have a relationship with Ed Carpenter Racing, and you've had a lot of success, you know, early on in your life. And what are your goals now? What do you look forward to?
You know, I mean, this will be my 13th Indy 500. So as a driver, you know, that's always been my goal, and still is my goal, is to win an Indy 500. You know, that's my professional desire and goal. You know, but as I get older, I'm 35 now, which seems young, but for race car drivers, you know, I'm not at the end, but you know, 40, 45 is kind of the threshold. You know, so for me, I own my own race team now, so that was kind of part one and looking ahead to my future. I love racing. I get asked all the time, what would you do if you weren't a race car driver? And it's always been a question that I've had a hard time answering, just because I'm so passionate about racing IndyCar, the Indy 500 in this sport. So when the opportunity came along to become an owner, you know, I really saw that as what I'd like my future to be beyond my driving career. So really trying to build this team, you know, not just as something that is good for my current driving career, but is kind of laying the roadmap for what the next, you know, 30 to 40 years of my career and life will look like as an owner. You know, and then off the track, away from the sport, you know, I've got a great family, a beautiful wife, Heather, and we have 3 young kids. So away from racing, you know, that's really my focus, is just trying to raise three good kids that will grow up to be good citizens.
Sure. You know, over the track, I asked you if you felt safe when you were driving, and you don't do this by yourself. There are a lot of people behind you and with you, a lot of people who love you and care about your safety. And what's it like as a driver? Do you deal with that sense of the risk, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's IndyCar racing, you know, it's gotten to be very safe. You know, if you look back in history, you know, back to the 50s, 60s, it was much more dangerous. There were a lot more injuries. Fatalities occurred at a much higher rate. We still have them. You know, we lost a friend in Justin Wilson last year, but the likelihood goes down all the time. The IndyCar series puts so much emphasis on pursuing more safety and coming up with new innovative ways to keep us safe, that it's something you think about less than what our peers used to. But at the same time, when something happens like what happened to Justin last year, you know, it reminds you that is the risk. You know, for me, it's something that I've always understood, and I've accepted. You know, I'm comfortable with that risk and where I am as a person. I've got great support from my family, great support from my team, that are looking out for me. But it is a team sport. You know, the guys building the car, you know, they take their job very seriously, and you know, the job that they have building the car, I'm putting my life directly in their hands. You know, at 240 miles an hour, you know, if they make a mistake, it can lead to me having an issue on track. So there's a lot of trust and a lot of faith, but at the end of the day, it's what I love to do.
Yeah. Well, my name is David Wright, and we're here at Ed Carpenter Racing with Ed, and great to spend some time with him on the track, and now to hear a little bit more about his life. So when I was asking you about that earlier, you mentioned how your faith plays into this, and you've been pretty open about your faith. Indiana Wesleyan University is a Christ-centered academic community, and it's been great to partner with you. But how does your faith come into your life as a professional race car driver?
One, I mean, I think it helps me keep balance and perspective and everything. Outside of the danger part of it, you know, racing, it's a volatile sport. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of things that happen outside of your control. Probably a lot more downtimes than uptimes. You know, there's the Indy 500, there's 33 of us racing. Most races, there's 22 to 25. And there's only one winner every weekend. So you deal with a lot more disappointment than you do celebration. So for me, having, being a person that's grounded in my faith, it helps me keep a bigger picture on things of, this is what I love to do. It's my job, but it's not who I am. It's not everything that I'm about. It's not the most important thing in my life. So it helps keep balance in my life from that regard. With the danger side of it, as I mentioned, when we deal with a tragedy like we dealt with last year, everyone deals with things like that differently and have different emotions. For me, living a life around Christ, I think it helps me manage those emotions a little better. For sure, I'm accepting and prepared for whatever could happen, just because I know where I am in my walk and my faith. So it just gives me comfort to not worry about it, because I know that I'm not in control of what's going on in my daily life, and only one person knows when our time is, and I just try to not worry about it and give it to Him.
Sure. It's an important part of our life, isn't it?
It is.
I think it's about a year ago, I think you wrote an email to me and you said, we're looking forward to the 100th running of the 500, and would you be interested in forming a partnership between Indiana Wesleyan and Ed Carpenter Racing? So what made you reach out to IWU, and what do you think about the process of education and how that's played into your career?
Yeah, well, I didn't really know Indiana Wesleyan all that well, to be honest. I see your buildings around town.
Yeah.
There's quite a few of them, and obviously different advertising things you do. So we were looking towards the 100th running, the 500. We saw an opportunity to get more organizations from our community involved, not only with our business but with Indy 500. And so we kind of targeted entities and businesses that we felt like aligned with who we were as a business, who I am as a person, and you guys fell in that list that we targeted, and I was very thankful that you answered the email and that we've been able to start a partnership. Education for me is important. I graduated from college from Butler University in 2003, and although it's a different institution, we still value the same things for the same reasons.
Absolutely.
But being a college graduate is one of the things that I'm most proud of. I'm the only IndyCar driver competing right now that does have a college degree.
Is that right?
And
good for you.
It's something, it's something that I'm really proud of, just because a lot of guys, when they start pursuing a career in racing, and other athletes too in other sports, they feel like they've got to be just all in, 100% focused on that, block everything out of their life. And for me, I like to tell people that that's not true. You can do both. And for me, I don't think I would be running this business, and I don't know that I would still be a driver even in my 13th year if I didn't have that foundation and experience of going to college, and becoming more well-rounded, becoming a better problem solver, being able to deal with more. People ask me a lot, what did you learn at college that helps you in racing? And I don't know if it's the right or wrong answer, but one of the biggest things for me wasn't even necessarily what I learned in the classrooms, but it was I was a full-time student, and I was racing full-time at that point too, and learning how to manage my time and focus on the task at hand at school and the task at hand with my career, and balancing those and accomplishing both and managing my time. That's probably the one thing that helped me prepare for now the situation I'm in, being a team owner and driving still, and having the mental capacity to be able to compartmentalize and focus on each task, and at the same time and separately, knowing when to turn it off and turn it on. So that was one of the biggest things for me, the experiences that I took away, beyond everything that I learned in the classroom.
Yeah. Well, not long ago you were up on our campus on Saturday when we had commencement exercises, and Indiana Wesleyan University has really tried hard over the years to provide opportunity and access to people who want the benefit of a college degree but haven't been able to achieve that yet in their lives. And you were there and saw those students and their families on campus. Describe what you saw and how you felt about that.
Yeah, it was a fun day. I'd never been to campus, and it's a beautiful campus to start with. but for me, having attended Butler, it was a pretty typical university. Majority of the students there, are traditional college students, teenagers, early 20s. Being at Indiana Wesleyan and seeing the 3 different ceremonies that day, we had the traditional students, and that was great to see. But I think my favorite part of the day was seeing, some of the adults. I talked to 30-year-old women that were there either getting their master's or undergrad degree, had their families with them.
Yeah.
It was really special for me to see those families interacting and
really
sharing in that day together. And I think I remember talking to a woman that got her master's, and she had to have been 60, 65 years old. So it was really
just a youngster.
Just a youngster. But it was really neat to see how broad of a range of students you have, and the type of students that you're catering to, no matter where they are in their lives. But for me, I was proud of them, especially some of the older students, just to see them, going back and either going and finishing school for the first time or finishing something that they weren't able to finish earlier in their life. So it was really neat to see.
Yeah, it's great. Well, again, this is David Wright with Ed Carpenter at Ed Carpenter Racing. We just had a great day today, and nice having the time to chat with you. And there are a lot of things that we can do to help our communities get better. We all live in the same communities. We may have differences of opinion about faith and politics, and we may like one sport better than another, but one of the things that the Indianapolis 500 has done over the years is really promoted Indianapolis and central Indiana, and it's a destination around the world. I travel a lot all around the world. They all know the Indy 500. So as you look at the event this year, the 100th running, and you think about the opportunities we have to better our community, what's the message that you'd want to send?
I think always it's an opportunity to showcase our city, but also our state. I think with it being the 100th running, the Indy 500 is always a ginormous event.
Sure.
But with it being the 100th and a little more monumentous, it's really even more so than normal bringing the community in. I know that was one of the goals of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, was to really involve the community, not just in Indianapolis, but statewide, to celebrate 100 years of this event, and at the same time to look ahead to the next 100 years and continuing this tradition and celebration of the institution of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but also celebrating our state and all the heritage that there is here. So it's a great opportunity to show the world what we're all about here in Indiana, and what type of people we are, and really that's what's made the event so great and lasted the test of time, is the community support, and the other way, what the event does for the community and our state. So I'm really honored to still be competing after 13 years, and hopefully I have many more left.
Great. Well, it's really an honor for Indiana Wesleyan University to partner with Ed Carpenter Racing with you. We admire you and admire the success you've had, and so thanks a lot. It's just a pleasure to work with you.
It's great talking to you today.
God bless.
Thanks.